The following is an excerpt from the Change Enterprise presentation, which was presented at the Learning and the Brain Conference in Boston, Massachusetts. The objectives for this presentation were really threefold. One, we wanted to make sure that we could engage participants in a discussion about how we might go about integrating social and emotional learning with the core academic content areas that are found in most classrooms. Another objective was to guide the participants through some interactive activities to really produce some thinking around social and emotional learning, service learning, and project-based instruction, which can be used to teach social emotional learning as well as your academic content across all K-12 classrooms. The last objective, and probably the most important objective as it relates to this particular presentation, is the introduction of the model of influence, which is an effective hierarchy designed to move one from a state of awareness to a state of action, and then also introduce the participants to the interaction congruence theory. The interaction congruence theory really looks at 4 elements of relatedness and how we might use the model of influence coupled with the interaction congruence theory to begin some work around becoming a change enterprise. Let's first look at the model and the theory, which are the foundations for this particular presentation. The model of influence, or what we call MOI, again moves someone from a point of just awareness or developing a consciousness, developing some knowledge around a particular idea or concept, to taking action and embracing their influence to be that particular change enterprise. It is a 4-level effective hierarchy that also includes acknowledging one's perspectives and affirming their beliefs, and then also acknowledging your own perspectives and affirming your beliefs about a particular value or an attribute. So, for example, if we are identifying compassion as the value or attribute that we want to focus on, we first have to develop a consciousness or an awareness around what that actually means, and then move to a point where we are affirming our beliefs as well as our perspectives, and then also affirming the beliefs and the perspectives of others, be it our students, our colleagues, our peers. And then we move to the 3rd level, in which we are engaging in some activities around realizing the benefit of compassion to ourselves and realizing the benefit of compassion or showing or demonstrating compassion to others. And then once we have all of this information, we understand the perspectives and the beliefs around compassion, we realize the benefit to self and others, it is then our job, our responsibility to take action and embrace our influence to become that change enterprise, and that will be dissected later on in the presentation. The other part of this is the theory, the interaction congruence theory. Now, the interaction congruence theory will be discussed in more detail a little bit later, but as you can see, it really focuses on 4 elements of relatedness: responsiveness, routines, rapport, and respect. We have used the model of influence as well as the interaction congruence theory to really, again, set the foundation for what it means to become a change enterprise. You first have to understand who your students are, and then you can begin to develop lessons and activities, authentic experiences that will move students from a point where they are just aware of what that particular attribute or value is to a point where they can begin to take action, embrace their influence to become a change enterprise. So let's dissect the concept or the idea of change enterprise. When we talk about a change enterprise, we're talking about two different things. One is looking at the concept or the idea of an enterprise. And when we look at an enterprise, and at least in this perspective, what we're talking about are two distinct things. One, a purposeful or an intentional activity or an action in which we are engaging in. Sometimes these actions or sometimes these activities might be challenging, they might be difficult, but yet it is an enterprise. It is something that we are preparing for. And then when we look at change, we're looking at various synonyms: transform, replace, shift, make different. The two that really kind of stand out for me are the concepts or the synonyms of transform and shift. And so when we then look at the idea of a change enterprise, what we're talking about is a person or a group of people who are engaged in a sometimes difficult or challenging activity or action to really shift and transform how someone thinks, or just their thinking in general, or maybe it even adds to their thinking, or shift and transform their actions, their behaviors, or really kind of in a way can guide their actions, their behaviors towards a greater good. So we're really not looking at just an individual act or action, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we're also talking about how then do we cultivate an environment where it is both an individual action and then also a group activity that's moving towards a greater good. So when we look at change enterprise is again a group of people who are becoming ready to engage in something that may be challenging or difficult, to shift, transform, change, or make different how someone is thinking, their attitudes, their actions, and their behaviors. And when we also think about change enterprises, it relates to how we can impact our school culture and our climate. Those things are really important. How are we shifting, changing, improving, making better the school culture or our classroom culture or the classroom climate so that we can engage in these purposeful and meaningful instructional activities, or engage in meaningful, intentional social and emotional learning coupled with our core academic content. This particular activity comes from the book Civility, Compassion, and Courage in Schools Today. And while I won't walk you through the activity or the case story as it is presented here, I certainly would welcome you or invite you to download the activity from our store on our website at www.parkeredanddevelopment.com. The case story really highlights how Mr. Lopez engages and addresses civility in his classroom with Amira and Samuel, and how all of them reflect the idea of a change enterprise. So the why. Let's talk about the why. The why really reflects the research. And the research that we've looked at from 1971 to 2014 says a lot of things about relationships. And so we're just going to cover a few of the main points that we found in the research that we've looked at. One of the things that we found as it relates to relationships is that teachers who can really build some genuine relationships have a better chance to impact the students' productivity as well as their achievement and their performance. But we've also found through the research that there's really an overrepresentation of kinesthetic learners in many special education settings and alternative learning settings. This is just the way that the students are focusing their learning or focusing their attention so that they can learn better. However, these students can sometimes give the appearance of being a disruption to the classroom, and therefore some of those students will find themselves in our special education programs or in alternative learning settings when they really just need authentic, meaningful, intentional learning experiences or purposeful activities to engage in so that they can use their bodies to really learn. Some other things that we found in the research in terms of why this whole concept of change enterprise is so important is that students will place a high value on the information that they receive. And when they place a high value on the information that they receive, they make better choices. Certainly that supports the whole idea of bringing your core content and your social and emotional learning, or those social and emotional learning contexts together, because we really want to give students an opportunity where they're placing high value not only on the academic instruction but also on their social and emotional learning, so that they really can impact the school culture, the classroom culture, and the climate in a very positive way. Some other things that we found in terms of the why. We also know that there is definitely some instances when cognition will decrease and emotionality will increase. When students become upset or when teachers become upset, they oftentimes, their cognition is going to decrease for sure, and their emotionality will increase. And so we want to provide them with opportunities so that they learn, so that they can place some value on developing an awareness of what those values and attributes are, that they really understand how these value attributes, concepts, perspectives can benefit themselves and others. So if we're thinking about responsibility, how then does responsibility impact other people as well as myself? How does being civil impact me as well as others who are around me? And so we want to give them an opportunity so that their cognition of these things will also increase, and perhaps our emotionality will decrease. And so those are some of the reasons why we really want to engage in not only having a dialogue about a change enterprise, or really embracing your influence to become a change enterprise, but we also want to give some credence to developing those real structured, sound, quality, healthy relationships with your students that will impact your classroom environment, your classroom management, the respect, rapport, responsiveness, etc. All of those elements of relatedness. And so that speaks to the why we do what we do, and why change enterprise is so important. In the next part of this, we're going to get to the how. How in the world do we actually do this in our classrooms? So for the how, we go back to the model and the theory, the model of influence and the interaction congruence theory. And so working from the bottom up, we look at the two highlighted statements. One being, we need to acknowledge who our students are, what they value, and what they can contribute. And when we talk about their contributions, we're talking about the contributions that they're making to the classroom culture, to the climate of that classroom, or maybe even perhaps the culture and the climate within the school, or how other people, teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, even parents, how they may contribute to the climate and the culture to make some improvements, so that we all have an opportunity to become a change enterprise, or to engage in the concept of a change enterprise. But we have to acknowledge who they are. What are they actually bringing into the classroom? What are they valuing about the information, or how are they placing a value on the information that we are providing them with? And then we also want to, for sure, cultivate a climate that is really going to engage them in embracing their influence. Create a space, a place, and opportunities for this particular change enterprise to go. So when we go back to that definition, we're talking about a person, which could be a teacher, an administrator. It could be a student, or it could be a group of teachers, administrators, or students who are engaging in some intentional actions and activities towards a greater good. You're finding and you're providing a space for this change enterprise to go, so that you're shifting thinking, ideas, perspectives, attitudes, and behaviors towards the greater good. In order to do all of that, however, which goes back to the interaction congruence theory, as well as coupling the model of influence, we must address those elements of relatedness. respect, responsiveness, rapport, relationships, and then integrate that with authentic learning experiences like project-based instruction or service learning, so that we can take students or take whoever is engaging in this activity from a point of just awareness to a point of action. So now let's dissect the interaction congruence theory a little further. The interaction congruence theory is based on the idea that there are at least 4 elements of relatedness. There certainly may be more, but for the theory as it is now, as we've developed it now, we're really looking at 4 elements of relatedness. Now, when you look at the actual model, you'll see at the bottom there's the personality package. The personality package is a tool that was developed by Parker Education and Development, and it's a tool that looks at identifying the characteristics and the traits that make your personality what it is. So it's not like your typical personality instruments where it kind of puts you into a box. This is an opportunity for you to kind of dig out and unearth your own characteristics, traits, and dispositions that make up not only your profile or side view, how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself, but it also helps you then put some indicators on those particular descriptors so that you really have an opportunity to see all of the different variations of your personality that you present to others, be it your students, peers, and colleagues. And so for more information about the personality package, you certainly can go to our website, www.parkeredanddevelopment.com, for information on workshops or how the personality package actually works. It is a 5-portal process or a 7-portal process, and we found a lot of success with this particular tool. So that's kind of at the bottom when we look at the theory as a whole. Once you've developed your personality package, which is the last step of that process, you really then begin to focus and address those elements of relatedness. And so when we look at responsiveness, we're talking about how are we responding to the culture within the classroom, the culture within the school, the culture within our communities, or maybe even the culture within our homes. And then we look at how do we respond to the individual needs of those folks in those particular environments or that context, as well as the climate that we're creating. So what is the responsiveness to all 3 of those ideas or those perspectives or concepts? Then we look at routines, and the routines are the expectations or the standards that we're setting in our classrooms and in our environments from day one. What are the routines that will guide our behavior, our actions, our thinking? And then we move into rapport, and rapport is really focused on that relationship building piece. How are we connecting? How are we building authentic connections and genuinely interacting with other people based on the personality traits and characteristics that we display every day? And then the final element of relatedness in the interaction congruence theory is the idea of respect. How are we creating a space where everyone is valued? And so when we look at the interaction congruence theory, This theory really speaks to the classroom environment as well as classroom management and behavior guidance, because it is so important that we focus and address those 4 elements of relatedness in order then to have a really good foundation in your classroom for your academic instruction to grow, or for your social and emotional learning to grow from, again, that state of awareness to that state of action. For more information on the model of influence, you can download the article for free in our store at www.parkeredendevelopment.com. If you're interested in reading more case stories or learning more about how to implement civility, compassion, and courage in schools, please find our book on our website or through any major book retailer. You can also find some information on the interaction congruence theory. It is presented in our book, Success Favors Well-Prepared Teachers, Developing Relationships and Routines to Improve School Culture. Or you might find some information on the personality package on our website as well. So we end the presentation with a few takeaways that really speak to how do we influence others to engage civility, compassion, and courage in their everyday context, be it their classrooms, their schools, their work settings, or even in their communities. So the first takeaway, success is an individual activity, whereas greatness is a global action. We can all identify people who have demonstrated some individual success, but we certainly can identify those who might be defined as great. People like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Gandhi are all people who have engaged in a global action. They have become, and they are representative of greatness in terms of their global activities or their global actions. Another takeaway is to create problems for our students to solve where they can really showcase what they know and the high value that they place on the information that they have received. When we engage them in authentic learning experiences like service learning or project-based instruction, we then have a better opportunity to show, or for them to show, how they're engaging their knowledge. So they're moving from a point of just an awareness of whatever that is, even if it's awareness of academic core content or social and emotional learning, to a point where they're taking action to demonstrate and show how they're embracing the influence that they have on others' thinking, or how others are behaving, or how they are behaving and thinking themselves. Some other things that we want you to take away from this presentation: you also need to acknowledge the relationship management pathways. Now, relationship management pathways is a part of the relationship management system developed by Parker Ed, and it is also presented in the book Success Favors Well-Prepared Teachers. You can find more information about that particular concept. But in general, we're talking about 4 identified relationship management pathways: seekers, drivers, rangers, and armored students. And these are all pathways that exist within every context, especially in the classrooms. And so it's really acknowledging what those pathways are, and then how do we then engage our personalities, our characteristics, our traits, and then also find out who these students are so that we can acknowledge who they are in the classroom and in that particular everyday context. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, is to really create a space for the change enterprise to grow and to evolve. We want to find an opportunity, or find opportunities, for our students to really engage in those intentional, meaningful activities so that they are shifting their thinking, or shifting other people's thinking, shifting their behavior, or maybe even shifting other people's behaviors towards a greater good, towards a positive, productive performance or positive impact in the classroom or in whatever context that they are engaged in, be it their home or even in their communities. Again, we want to move our students from just understanding, acknowledging the idea that success is a good thing, to understanding and acknowledging the idea that they can engage in global actions of greatness. And so when we talk about that change enterprise, it is an individual or a group of people who are engaged in an intentional, purposeful action or activity to shift transform, or change the thinking, the behavior, the attitudes, and even the actions towards a greater good. If you'd like to know more about the change enterprise or the concept of change enterprise, feel free to go to our website, www.parkeredanddevelopment.com. If you'd like to reach out to any of us individually, our information is within this presentation. If you'd like more information on the personality package or how to actually teach civility, compassion, and courage in schools, feel free to contact us through the website or through our individual emails. This presentation has been narrated by Dr. Candace Dowd Barnes. If you'd like more information on civility, compassion, and courage, please visit the website at www.parkeredanddevelopment.com. If you'd like more information on the personality package or the interaction congruence theory or other products and presentations and workshops developed by Parker Ed and Development, please visit the website. We'd be happy to serve you.